Mendeecees was arrested in Mexico following a violent altercation with a cast member. The tension is increasing. The sun was high in the sky, shining its golden light on the magnificent streets of Mexico City. The cast members of the reality television show Love and Hip Hop were experiencing a lot of friction with each other, which was in stark contrast to the lively and charming culture of the city. They came to Mexico to film an episode. This trip was intended to help them recover their friendships and relationships after months of drama. But as the cameras rolled and the team hurried to record every moment, the underlying tension that had been building for weeks finally came to a boiling point. Mendeecees Harris, a well-known personality in the love and hip-hop scene who is known for his smooth-talking ways, was never one to avoid trouble. However, this time he found himself in the middle of a maelstrom of turmoil that would take him far away from his comfort zone. He had traveled to Mexico with the aim of leaving his personal problems behind him, but a single fight with one of his co-stars, Jasmine, who was a fiery and ambitious lady, was going to turn into an international crisis. Mendeecees has always been calm, even when he is in front of the cameras. He had a reputation for being a caring parent and a man who was respected in the streets. However, today, that reputation would be put to the test in ways he had not expected. The catalyst, a basic comment. It all began in a completely harmless way. The party met for lunch at an upscale restaurant with a view of the ocean. The table was long and decorated with colorful plates, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. As she always does, Jasmine was talking loudly and attempting to take control of the conversation. She had a reputation for being a little difficult to deal with, but on that particular day, Mendeecees was bothered by the way she spoke. Jasmine leaned back in her chair with a sneer and said, "To be honest, Mendeecees, I don't think you care about this show anymore. Your story is boring, and you have become too predictable," is what they said. The comment was a pointed attack on Mendeecees' personal and professional life. He took pride in being a central player in the program, so being called predictable seemed like a direct attack on his image. The crew kept filming, and the entire table fell silent for a moment, as they sensed that something was about to happen. Mendeecees responded in a frigid manner, narrowing his eyes and saying, "You don't know what you're talking about." His voice had dropped a few octaves, which was a clear indication that he was no longer interested in making small conversation. Jasmine stood her ground. Instead, she leaned in even closer, her smile full of derision. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not too difficult to understand. You're only here for the money, not for personal development." That was the catalyst. Mendeecees, who is typically cool and collected, felt his fury rise. He had been working hard behind the scenes, trying to balance his personal problems, professional concerns, and family strife. Being disregarded as someone who didn't care and didn't put in the effort into his work was a real insult. Mendeecees' voice was getting louder as he added, "Jasmine, you have no idea what I'm going through. Don't act like you know me when you talk to me. You don't know anything about me at all." You could feel the tension in the air. The rest of the cast could sense that a storm was coming, but no one stepped in to stop it. They were aware that the producers would be thrilled about this, and the cameras were rolling. Jasmine smirked again, evidently relishing the turmoil that she was causing. The fight is becoming worse. Mendeecees suddenly stood up, causing his chair to fall over. As the tension grew, the restaurant became quiet. Jasmine did not react. Rather, she sat back in her chair, crossed her arms, and gave him a challenging look. "Are you going to take action now? Go on, prove to us what you can do," she challenged. He could not handle that issue, which was the suggestion that Mendeecees was just making empty promises. In a fit of rage, he snatched the margarita that Jasmine had left on the table and threw it in her face, his expression twisted with anger. Jasmine screamed in astonishment and disgust when the chilly liquid splashed upon her flesh. Mendeecees, with his fists clenched and his breath thick, spat, "Don't ever talk to me like that again." What happened next was a confusing mess. Jasmine jumped up and pushed her chair back with a loud yell. The two of them exchanged words, and each of them was filled with insults. Jasmine struck at Mendeecees in the heat of the moment, and her palm came very close to hitting his face. Mendeecees swung back without giving it any thought. The sound of flesh hitting skin echoed in the tight atmosphere, and the people watching all gasped in unison. They were hit hard by the truth of the situation. The conflict had escalated beyond a verbal argument, it had turned violent, and the cameras were recording everything that was happening. While the rest of the crew hurried to get the situation under control, a few cast members raced to separate them. However, it was already too late. The harm had already been inflicted. The confrontation had developed into a situation that was much more serious than anyone had expected. Taken into custody in Mexico. When security arrived at the scene, it was obvious that Mendeecees had gone too far. Many staff members, cast members, and bystanders saw the brawl, and the police were called to the area to handle the problem. Mendeecees was standing there, furious, with his chest rising and falling as he attempted to regain his breath. Jasmine was the first to regain her composure and explain what had happened, even though she was just as angry as the others. However, it was too late to fix the situation. The authorities did not care who started the fight. They simply observed two people involved in a dispute, one of whom was a well-known person with a long history of disputes. The Mexican police were not tolerant of violence, particularly when it came from visitors from other countries. Mendeecees was not above the law, even though he was famous. His fellow cast members were shocked and could not believe what had happened. They had never anticipated things to get this far, and he was detained right then and there. Jasmine was still angry, but she was not physically wounded. She went to another room to calm down. Meanwhile, the officials removed Mendeecees out of the restaurant. Mendeecees was taken away in handcuffs, and his expression showed a combination of shock and frustration. The reality TV cameras kept rolling, filming the scene. The producers instantly came together again, sensing a chance for additional drama. They were already thinking about how they could turn this occurrence into the next big plot for the program. The consequences. The remaining cast members were left to absorb what had just happened when they returned to the hotel. Some people felt uncomfortable because they were aware that a line had been crossed in a way that would be difficult to reverse. Others, like as Jasmine, were unable to hide their pleasure at witnessing Mendeecees get taken down a notch. However, Mendeecees had bigger problems to worry about than his arrest. He was confined to a small holding cell, far away from his family, and he had no idea how long he would be kept there. His legal team was in a rush to figure out the details and get him released, but the language barrier made things more difficult. Mendeecees thought on the things that had happened to him that had brought him to this moment during the hours of uncertainty. He reflected on his personal life, his children, and the decisions he had taken that had led him to this situation. Now, the anger he had toward Jasmine seemed insignificant in the big scheme of things. He was the only one to blame for what had begun as a small disagreement, but it escalated into an international incident. The press back home learned about the issue fairly instantly, and soon after, headlines were all over the internet. One of them stated, "Mendeecees arrested after violent altercation in Mexico." Another one said, "Love and hip-hop star in hot water after fight with co-star." As more information about the battle became available, the media frenzy only grew stronger. Will it be redemption or ruin? After spending several hours in a holding cell in Mexico, Mendeecees was finally released on bail. He returned to the motel feeling defeated, yet his determination remained strong, despite his pride being broken. He was aware that he would have to deal with the repercussions of his conduct, both in a legal sense and on a personal level. His reputation had suffered as a result of the episode, and it would take time to fix the damage. Jasmine also received criticism for her involvement in the confrontation. While many people saw her as the one who started everything, she also had her own critics who thought she had gone too far. Mendeecees would have a long journey ahead of him to find salvation. However, he had learnt one thing over his life: if you have enough desire, you can rebuild anything. Although his stay in Mexico may have ended in controversy, that would not be the end of his narrative. Not even close. This dramatized rendition is a combination of drama, conflict, and introspection, and it remains true to the type of tension that is frequently found on reality television. The personalities involved must deal with the repercussions of their conduct, both in terms of the legal system and the effect on their public images. It serves as a reminder of how easily things can get out of hand when emotions and egos clash.